Okay, I'd like to call the March meeting of Grand Point Owners Association to order. Now that the bosses arrived, we've got to count, and we're all going to be official here. A reminder that this meeting is going to be conducted in accordance with the code that's described here on your agenda. And then what that basically is we did not have a quorum in December at the meeting. So according to this code, the next meeting does constitute a quorum. So this will be an official meeting. First order of business is to approve the minutes this is from September, since December did not count. So the September minutes are provided to you. I hope you've had a chance to look at them. They've been posted online.
Move to approve.
So we have a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
We have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the minutes are approved. I'm going to keep my remarks hopefully a little bit brief because I do have some stuff to go over on the beach erosion update. I guess the main thing is thank you all for coming out on this beautiful morning. Spring is finally starting to come to Drum Point. I've got ospreys invaded my pole outside off my yard. That's always a good sign that things are coming together here in March. Things are flowering, trees are starting to bloom. It also reminds me that we've just had a recent not complaint or notification that we still have some people who kind of let their dogs run, and they run on your yard, and they leave things on your yard. Just a reminder to everybody that, to get it in the minutes, that we do have a leash law, and animals should be on leashes, and you should clean up after your pets. And also want to thank people who have been on your walks and things picking up litter. I think overall the community is in pretty good shape, although I do see some streets as I ride around on my bike that, where people leave things along the side of the road. Not near as bad as Rousley Hall Road, but still, let's try to keep the community looking good. If you have a chance, pick up a little bit of something when you're out on your walks, and we'll keep everything looking nice. All right, I'd like to go through our committee reports. Let's start with environment. Any or Bonnie?
Nothing really new, except that Judy and I attended an online conference about Smithsonian about fragmites control, and I think it confirmed what we already knew, is you have to keep fighting it, you can never really get rid of it. So it was quite interesting. If anybody sees any fragmites on common area, please let us know, because we'll have Mark Smith come and touch up what remains that we know of, and if there's any new growth, we'd like to take care of it. And the other thing that was interesting in this Smithsonian lecture was that part of their experimentation is to see what kind of native plants that were forced out by the Phragmites could do well. And it's kind of got mixed results. They really don't know yet because it depends on the salinity and the amount of flooding and a variety of factors. But if there's any other environmental things that people see that need to be addressed, please let one of us know. Please let Rhea know. Jenny, anything?
No.
Okay. Any questions or comments? All right, thanks. The committee does a good job in keeping track of things going on in the community and things like the Phragmites that may need attention. And so if you notice anything that looks like it might be an environmental problem, let us know. We'll get Bonnie and Jenny and the committee to look at it. All right, operations and roads. Gary, you're outgoing, but you have.
Well, since I'm the only one here, I only know of two projects ongoing. One of them is Surf Drive, where a culvert has been compromised, and I think they're going to start work on that next week. It should take only like 3-4 days to finish. And drainage issues on Bay Drive down by Lake, Drum Point Lake. No, it's Lake Charming, Lake Charming, not far from the causeway. It's just an old swale that needs to be cleared and refurbished, that's all that is. And that's in the process of being let for bid, so that'll probably be a month or so before that gets taken care of. Other than that, I don't have anything.
Want to mention Sal?
Oh, sure, go ahead, you do that.
Well, since Gary has served so long, which we appreciate, I know, I'm going to miss him. We have somebody who's going to kind of take his place, Sal Kaza. He's a gentleman that lives here in Drum Point. He's the one who does all the beautiful photos that you see there as you come in. But Gary's working with him to kind of take over how to analyze things and, you know, where the right-of-way is versus, you know, common proper, private property, snow removal in the wintertime, things like that. So.
Would you mention Chris?
Oh, yeah. And then Jeff McDonald, our project manager, who has been with us 8, 9, 10 years, a long time, quite a while. He also is retiring, and regardless of my telling him he can't, nobody listens to me. But anyway, there's another gentleman at the county, Chris Franklin, who's in the process of getting approval to work for us. And it's my understanding that he has full approval from Public Works. So his application or request, what have you, is at HR, and he's waiting for the final approval. Can't imagine why they didn't tell him no. So actually, the project that should happen on Bay Drive, we kind of delayed a little bit because Chris is hopefully going to be in with us in the next week or so. So, you know, it's great to have somebody at the county because they know all the hoops, they know the people, they can walk things right through. So.
Yeah, I just echo Rita's comments about Gary and Jeff have done great service for the community for several years in multiple capacities. And we're going to thank them for all their help and miss them. They won't get away too far, though.
I still live here.
They live here.
They live here.
Well, Jeff doesn't live here, but he
Well,
has said that he will work with Chris over the course of a period of time until Chris gets the hang of what we do and so on.
Yeah.
And
Unless
Gary,
we're going to
of
break
course,
Gary's ankles.
Right. Now, the road committee, Gary's position and now Sal, that's a voluntary position, and they can always use help from the community. You know, let us know if you see a problem, if you see a road problem, a tree down on the road problem, something like that, and we work with the committee to take care of those things. The other position that Rhea described is that's the biggest thing they're involved in is in the annual paving project. That's the person who does most of the contracting work and consulting work and oversight on the actual paving work. So that's a dedicated function. Now, they also get involved in some other major projects too. But all right, any questions on comments on roads or operations? Okay. Finance. Yeah.
Well, I guess at the top would be, and the same thing, you could use always help the community on the finance committee. It's that time of year to develop a budget for the next fiscal year. So that'll all have to be done and presented to the membership at the June meeting. We had pretty good, mostly it's members of the board, plus Mike Chatonis, who's is a member. He's a accountant, and he really knows this stuff, is helpful to put the budget together. If anybody else wants to work with us in putting it together again this year, be most welcome. It doesn't take much time, 2 or 3 hours. We try to schedule everybody's convenience. So something, if you're interested, please let me know. There's not much to report on the budget. Things are moving along. The balance sheet is one of the documents that you have. It looks exactly as expected, no surprises, nothing out of the ordinary to explain now. You'll probably look very similar to last quarter, the last time we actually had a meeting. It's quite as expected. The one budget document I look at all the time is the budget versus actual. See what we budgeted and what we've actually spent. That's one of the documents that you have in your packet. Again, for the most part, we're just right on the money. I think the finance committee did a pretty good job putting the budget together last year. There's really no amounts that are unexpected, except for one, and I have to explain that one. But everything else is basically within budget and right where we expect to be at this time in the fiscal year. We'll finish the fiscal year on June 30th, right where we hope to be. The one exception, if you look line 6300, which will be page 2, I think you remember. It's professional fees, and that's basically our accountant who does our audit and helps us keep track of all of these things. And our legal fees. Our legal fees are usually just $2,700 a year, retainer for the attorney. For many years, we never used all of our professional fees. So I recall, I think it was me who suggested the finance committee that we cut it by $3,000 last year when we put the budget together. We had never really used all the money, so it seemed like a big place to cut at the time. Well, for the first time ever, we've used the lawyer several times, and we've gone over the retainer for work that we had to ask him to do. So we are a bit over. We're allowed to go 15% over in each category, but the membership has to approve any time we exceed that. So we're about 37% over, but it's a very small amount, relatively small amount of money as part of our budget. It's our professional fees were, we budgeted $9,500 and we spent $13,085. So one thing I'd like to propose to the membership today, and we do have a legal forum today, is just approval to exceed the budget in this one category, to exceed the budget by 15% or more. So if someone would move to do that.
I move we raise the budget by 15%, or make it approve it for assisted
To exceed 15%.
For legal.
Do we have a second?
Is this for legal fees?
For legal
only?
fees only.
It's professional fees is the
Well,
category.
I mean, not raise the budget 15%, but raise it for this line item.
Just this line item.
Okay.
And just to cover what we spent already.
No, not just to clarify.
I'll second. Any questions, comments, discussion?
Hey, Jack, I have a question. This is through February. Is it gonna realign by the end of the year? I mean, I'm all for approving the percentage, but will there be some realignment by the time we get to the end of the fiscal year?
I don't think we anticipate any additional professional fees between now and June 30th, the end of our fiscal year. And I'm going to recommend to the finance committee, when we do put next year's budget together, that we go back to the way we always had it, and we don't have to do this again.
And I would add that the reason for this, for the legal fees in particular, is we needed some opinions to help us establish our procedures and things like that on primarily quitclaim deeds that come up fairly often from people that have some kind of a riparian rights or something on that order for their property, and for some liability questions. So that's what we sought opinions on, and it was more than what we anticipated. Okay, we've got a motion and a second. All in favor of increasing the budget by 15%, say aye.
Aye.
Exceed. And all opposed? Okay, that passes. Thank you, Jeff. Okay, safety committee. Do you have anything on safety?
Not at this time, no.
No? Again, one thing I would mention here is normally one of our traditional supporters and faces here in the crowd that does a lot of work for the community for safety, particularly is Peter Holt. And he's been undergoing some fairly serious health issues. And so Maggie has offered to step in, and she had been working with him on our the community response center and things like that we have at the office. So thank her for stepping in, but mostly keep Peter and your thoughts and prayers. If you have a chance, stop, say hi, or got a good attitude. But
He's taking visitors?
pardon me?
Peter's taking.
I would call before,
Okay, but he,
just, just check with him.
I would call, yeah.
Because he's got,
You were there last night.
I mean, I think he enjoys.
Good,
I would
okay.
just check and make sure that, they're not off on some proper thing or something.
Okay, I'll give him a call.
And if you're interested in their vote, they would happily sell it.
The vote? Does the parent know what the vote?
Maybe, I don't know. I mean, if they have to pass it on to their daughter, and we're not sure that their daughter wants it.
Yeah.
It likes to.
Yeah, I know. Okay, I think last is the welcoming committee. Rhea, do you want to cover that, or?
Yeah, I can.
or-
There's Jenna and Asha primarily, and Ginny has helped out a lot too, assembling buckets that we're still getting from Ace. And Cindy, of course, collects some of the goodies for the bucket. And I do the brochures. I've given out, I didn't do a count, maybe half dozen in the last, probably more than that, in the last quarter. And it's been quite a successful program. People are very happy with what they get, and it enables me to get contact information when they come in. So it's been a good committee.
Any questions on the welcoming committee? This thing will work. Direct your attention to the TV back here.
Would you help if the lights are out?
You might. Yeah, front one's here, maybe.
There we go.
We'll go for Netflix.
Yeah.
Open up any exercise program.
Oh, yeah. Excuse me. Sit there. I don't know what the weather is. I forgot what they see.
It's in there somewhere.
I wish these TVs would stay where you meet the
She used to like to play. Yeah, she does. Yeah, she wants to play with all of them. With the big ones. Yeah. Yeah, she could be, well, it's funny, sometimes you can teach you.
Okay, over a year ago, started to get more and more concerned about the condition of the community beach down on Beach Drive. The erosion there, we felt like we were starting to lose beach. And it's a community resource. Now, we can argue about whether it's worth doing things or not, but it's a community beach, so the board felt like we owed it to the community to look at, what's that? Okay, so this is kind of worst case. This is a little over a year ago. This was looking north after a storm. And you see all of the asphalt that was exposed. This was an old road bed. This was looking south towards the club beach. And again, this large asphalt pad was stopped there. Why is this doing this? No, I put it on, it's on a slideshow, and I don't want that.
Yeah, don't need that, let's do a slideshow.
What kind of settings?
Cool.
Because I can't seem to,
Somebody said folder?
Yeah, look at your folders, because that's, if you go back, instead of slideshow, they should be in your folder. You should have the folders. And, going back, look at folders, then hit that,
okay,
open that, put this one. You should be in that.
well, that's what we had before.
Yeah, that, you go to the right, slideshow with it.
Yeah, I know.
There you go, right there.
Still not gonna do what I want, but we'll see. We'll struggle. Okay. So back, this was again looking south. We said, you know, we need to start studying some kind of approach and see if there's something we can do about this. As a temporary measure, we got approval from the community to bring in some more sand. Back in July of last year, we put in several truckloads of sand in the beach. And, you know, for a while it looked like this. And it came and go for a while depending on storms. But, you know, it was holding for a while. And we thought, well, maybe that's hopeful. But then eventually we started losing more of that. We were back to the conditions like we saw early in there, where we had more of the exposed asphalt and debris. So in the meantime, we had started, and this is kind of hard to see, but there's the white line on here. That's the condition of Drum Point in 1848. And you can see that the land actually grew or accreted out to the point between 1848 and the 1900s sometimes. The next line, the red one out here, was 1942. And here's our beach right in here. So between 1942 and the yellow was 1993, we lost a lot of beach, a lot of land. It was receding back in towards the Drum Pond or lake. So then we said, well, let's see what we can do about it. We found an engineering firm in Virginia that's done a lot of work in constructing various things that have helped preserve the beach front shoreline in several areas around here. this is just a few more examples. In 2011, and this had been this way for a while, if you focus on that tree line right there, this was the adjoining property, this was the asphalt section coming down. But we still had quite a bit of beach there in 2011. By 2013, there's that tree line again. Now that beach has receded back in almost behind that tree line. And it hasn't gotten any better. 2019 is a different scale, but again, the tree line is here and the beach is here back behind it. Okay, so we're looking for somebody to help us understand what was going on and provide some remedies or proposed solutions. So did a fair amount of research, and it turned, this is Swan Point up the Potomac before you get to the 301 bridge. And there was this whole section along in here where Charles County had cooperated with the landowners, and they got this engineering firm from Virginia, Coastline Design. It's done a lot of this type of work where they design breakwaters or jetties or spurs, different options. And this, what they put in this section along here, this was about a kilometer, or yeah, at least. Yeah. And they put in these series of breakwaters with some sand behind them to start the process of accreting more. And you can see the effect of that has been to substantially hold that shoreline and provide sandy areas or beaches. So we contacted them. We got a proposal from them to give us a study on it. And they did. We got it approved by the board, or by the community in the budget last year. They had a proposal for $10,000 to give us a complete outline of a project to help save our beach. I think we're about $2,000 less than that to complete the preliminary study that we have right now. Okay, so this is just a concept, the initial concept of what it looked like, what they were proposing. It's our beach. There's that tree line again. The property line basically comes down along here. So they were actually proposing that that there be a spur out here coming off of that adjacent property, and then a breakwater here that was basically about the Drum Point Club line, but it's offshore. Now, in the meantime, we've got independently contacted by the owner of this property, who independently wanted to put in some kind of a jetty or a groin or something there to help preserve his shoreline. So that's still in the works. He is now seeing the proposal we have so far. We've started discussions with him. So over time we'll see where that goes. But this was the initial concept. Okay, so one of the outputs of the study so far has been this engineering proposal that basically describes about a 4-foot spur here, 4 foot high above mean-low water, and then a breakwater here that also about the same dimension. And then behind those would be some sand fill to start the accretion process, and there would also be shoreline plantings to try to preserve and hold the beach. So it's a complete project. What we're looking at now is, in conversation with the adjacent landowner, is there may be options on where we put that spur that will help benefit him more and still provide some protection and some accretion for the Drum Point property. And then we also have talk to the club about positioning of this. Even though it's offshore, some of this will actually impact, but probably help preserve the club beach out here on the east side. But all that has to be done in conjunction with adjacent landowners and the club and the Property Owners Association. So the good news is there may be a solution, or at least some will say a temporary solution, because we still have the problem of sea level is projected to rise anywhere from 1 foot to 2.5 feet in this area over the next 30 years. So are we considering a solution here that may be inundated? I don't know. We've got to look at that, the longer term effects of this. Now, I have talked to Mr. Hardaway, who's the engineer behind this proposal, about that. And of course, his feeling is that at 4 foot, it's still designed to still be above the projected rise in sea level. But again, how much will that affect the overall growth of this, and how much, erosion and stuff will we still be facing? If it's too much, well, then maybe it's not worth spending the money. So how much is the money? Well, that's the bad news part of it. And we knew that this was not going to be a cheap solution. But his initial cut at this, and he's got some construction resources that he's used on some of these other projects. But the net thing is that both of these structures combined, and the sand and the plantings and all of the oversight that goes into it, and the permitting and so forth, is in the neighborhood of $250,000. So after you gulp at that, you say, well, okay, maybe there's some options here that would save us some money in conjunction with the other landowner. We've started communication with the state. There are some no finance loan options available for shore preservation. So we're just starting that process to find out what's available. We would have to take things like that in consideration and look at financing options and come up with a longer-term plan and present back to the community. I hope to have enough of that information to be able to do that in June at our next meeting. I don't have it now. We're starting to put that together, but I think there's a viable engineering solution. Some will say that it's temporary at best. Well, it is, but over what time scale? And is it worth still preserving? If we don't do anything, we know it's going to get worse. And eventually, we're going to lose more and more of that. Oh, by the way, this also includes, that proposal included cleaning up all of that asphalt that's on the beach and continuing exposed. So that's another thing.
Would it include like chewing up more of the road going back? So taking out more of the asphalt going back toward the entrance, so you don't end up, because just asphalt on the beach might be one thing, but can you chew back on the road a bit?
Well,
And then pull out some of that asphalt too, so it doesn't just keep showing
yeah.
up?
I just kind of finished with this. This is an example of that type of solution they used down at the Virginia Institute of Marine Science, down towards closer to the Tidewater area, and where they had put in a breakwater here and spur. And you can see the growth behind that breakwater. And this started out as a V coming into the V of the breakwater, and now they've got vegetation growing in there, and they're holding the shoreline there.
So Mike, on that photograph, what this will happen, you really need to understand that the building there is where we have to figure out where the original shoreline was, and the amount of shoreline recession that's taken place in either one of those sandy beach areas that you see in light. So basically, there's been that much recession of that beach area since that building was built. So and the other thing I want to point out later is, and I'll pass some handouts on, I don't want to belabor the point, but basically those kind of curves you see around the end of those jetties are an easily defined mathematical curve, which the engineers have used you know,
About these?
in their design concepts. So the thing is, each and every time you put an offshore breakwater like that out, it creates that curvilinear curve and erodes that into the shoreline. So basically what happens is that you can calculate mathematically the amount of land that's lost as a result of that breakwater equipment. And that's the scary part, because that's almost precisely what you're proposing for, you know, for what will happen to the drum point
Yeah,
program.
but my next question then is, what if you didn't, what if those weren't there? Then what would happen?
Well, if you want, I mean, I don't, I mean, you know, if you want
No.
to talk, if you want to talk about it, I'll talk.
No, but those are the kind of,
I mean, I don't want to belabor it, and I don't want to take over the meeting. I mean, if you don't do anything and you're on the right track, is that if you didn't do anything, your options are do nothing.
right.
Do this, or in conjunction, what will happen to the Drum Point Club beach, and how to maintain a beach so you have something there. If you don't do anything, I mean, Peter and I went out and did a topographic profile of the beach. We know that it's like 2.8 feet above sea level. We know that in case of both the Maryland Sea Grant program or the VIMS program, that Hardway is a part of it, that the projection for 30 years from now is a sea level rise of 2 feet. Okay, so basically, given the height of our land area and the beach at 2.8 feet, and superimpose on that the high tide range of another foot and a half on top of that, basically each high tide is going to overtop the beach and connect it with, you know, with the lake. I mean, that's just on a given 30 years from now. We've lived here 24 years. You know, I mean, we're the old timers here now. But I mean, you know, that's, you know, a lot of people who will make these decisions will have to witness that. You know? I mean, anyway, so the main thing is that if you were to go ahead and use the design that Hardaway is proposing, and he talks about the height of his rock piles related to storm surge, but he doesn't relate it to the height, the altitude of the land area behind us. Regardless of what he puts in, I mean, those rock piles will survive. But the thing is, the rising sea level is still going to encroach and overtop the land area.
Right.
I mean, so those are some of the things you have to work with. And if you, I mean, as I looked at the thing, if you do nothing too, you're going to find that the existing shoreline will work towards a more stable position, where the maximum point of erosion is basically a curvilinear thing, you know, right at the end of the adjacent property owner's property. And that particular shoreline is going to maintain a more or less linear pattern down to the point. And the only bad thing for the community is that the greatest narrowing of the land area is going to occur on DPPOA property, but the entire shoreline is going to recede all the way to the point. Anyway, I don't want to delay it, but if
No,
people want
but
to talk about it later, it's fine.
But these are good points. I mean, this is what has to be considered in the overall evaluation of this, and the decision on whether or if to do anything, or to do something maybe as a modification of this.
Yeah. I mean,
But-
the other thing is that I mean, in the first, you know, analysis that I gave you guys early on, I mean, I was looking at, you know, at the potential effects of that kind of curve off the end of an offshore breakwater, as it would affect the Drum Point Club property. And one of the last meetings here, we talked about how the value of our DPPOA beach is something valued around 40K or something like that.
91,000, I believe.
So, but the thing is, think about it in terms of the cost per square foot. If you've got 15,000 square feet like Hardaway is estimated, figure out the cost per square foot. I mean, the analysis that I did for the amount of area to be removed from Drum Point Club property is an additional 15,000 square feet of their property. Do we want to evaluate their property at the same cost?
Well, again, we don't have a solution today. We have a proposal that has to be evaluated in the context of things like Kurt's talking about, which are valid concerns. You have to address it in the context of the club. We have adjacent landowners. So all this has to be looked at, with some kind of a cost-benefit analysis, if you will, and then with the financing options. And we have to have the whole picture, and we don't have it yet. So I just wanted to try to bring you up on where we are with it.
I think Bruce has a question.
I have a question. Has there, prior to this, has there anything on the northern part of the property, anything new happened over the last 20 years in terms of structures or anything that may have caused some of the erosion?
Yeah, I can sort of, probably yes. Now, you almost have to come up and look at this, but, and this is not the greatest picture, but you go back in time, the shoreline here was fairly smooth line. It may have moved back and forth, but it was fairly smooth. In more current times, like the red and yellow, you're starting to see these scallop effects on the beach, and guess what those are? Those were jetties and groins that were put in without any, probably without much of any environmental impact on them. Just throw them out there and it'll save our beach. Well, yeah, maybe the beach to the north of it, behind it, but maybe the one to the south is eroded. And there's a real good example over on Bay Drive where somebody put something out. And yeah, there may be some accretion on the north side of it. You look at the south side, and the land is eroding enough that he's starting to lose over some, not dock, but some structure there that they had put in that's starting to fall in because they've lost that. So you can't just throw a bunch of rocks out there like Kurt said. You can't do that without looking at the long-term impacts.
So Mike, I have a question. So that begs the question, if we don't do anything, if we go with the option of doing nothing, and the owner to the north, who before we even started this was interested in having, I guess, a jetty put out, if he does that, what does that do to our beach?
Well, right.
Immediately to
So
the south.
Where?
Exactly.
Exactly.
Exactly. Right. So should we do perhaps something that tries to equalize that effect?
Well, that would be the idea of something like this,
Right.
that combines, is a combined effect. And you look at, is that something that's worth doing? Or as Kurt said, is it something we're gonna, it's gonna go away anyway? One more question behind you.
Yeah, Bruce, has your question been answered before I?
Well, I was wondering if some of these, I guess you'd call them illegal structures that were put in Manford, that were were they sanctioned by the state or whatever?
They were permitted.
I don't know, I mean, some of it goes way back, and I don't know whether they had permits or not.
I'm just wondering if
I
those
mean,
were removed, if it would do something to help the beach were in question. Some of those were removed.
No.
Well, you're not gonna do that.
Well, I guess a similar question would be, is that the adjacent property owner, I mean, we talked about this thing and looking at the owner's plotted plat doesn't extend down to the shoreline. Have we granted a quick claim deed to him to be able to affect the slope going down the shoreline? I mean,
We haven't granted anything right now.
well, I mean, basically, he doesn't own that land.
I think he has already put some sort of
There's already
bulkhead
something
in
else.
there.
Well, he's put a bulkhead in, but the thing is, he doesn't.
He's got riprap.
They put
riprap.
They put riprap in here. His property line comes down about here.
But it doesn't. But what I'm saying is, if you look at the county maps.
Yeah, but if you look at the extension of his property line,
But even the slope coming down to the beach, I think it shows that as being DPPOA land. The only land that he owns on the county flats is up at the top. There's one rectangle at the top, which is the land, which is his plat. And,
Rhea, can
We've had a slide. One of your slides shows the property line. From the
I
design.
also got copies of the recent county maps that can show you how much land we've actually lost since the 1950s, which is.
Yeah.
But if the land went away, his property line would be in the water.
No, what I'm saying is that his property line is the top of the block. Is what I'm pointing out.
Not sure that's.
Go on, I've got the county maps up there.
Okay, this,
The county maps, some of these maps.
okay, according to that map, Kurt's right.
Yeah, I mean, according to this is his property right here. And it comes down to, well, essentially, no lower than mean high water.
No, what I'm saying is that the slope, I mean, if you look at the plat itself ends at the top edge of the bluff. And the slope going down to the shoreline is basically DPPOA land unless it's been claimed away.
Uh,
Well, are
Discussing.
you talking about this part here?
I can't really.
Yes. Mike,
Okay, so, again, let's check and see.
Mike, we've been told before, discussing the property lines, just by looking at county plats and whatever, does not make sense, nor is it accurate. If you really want to know where the property lines are, you have to go to the deeds and have it surveyed.
Well, and this is the result. They did do a survey as part of
And
the
it's based
initial.
on deed information.
The initial search, the initial,
Well, if we don't know that, then we don't know if it's accurate.
I mean,
well, but we need to check our records and see if there's been anything in riparian rights, deeds or anything, and see what's going on there. Bonnie?
And this is apropos of the earlier discussion about the value of the land at 91,000 or thereabouts of the beach. In addition to that actual hard money value, there is the also soft value of the beach to the community, which is huge if you don't have to have waterfront. It's just huge. People with kids use that all summer long, and it has a very great value to all of us who own property, that there is this amenity. So that's one of it, and I don't know how you value that in addition to that.
Yeah, there's intrinsic value, and all that has to be considered
Right.
as we go forward with this, and weigh the pros and cons. Judy?
I just want to make a comment as a member of the Property Owners Association and the Drum Point Club. As Kurt said, we've lived here about 23, 24 years. It concerns me that the property owners would put in any kind of structure that could have a major impact on the Drum Point Club, and I know that that's something that you don't want to do. But I'm wondering if maybe another option would be to try to coordinate, cooperate with the Drum Point Club. That beach is wonderful. Some way that perhaps there could be seasonal passes or something like that. So instead of trying to preserve a very small beach, work together as a community so that members of the community had legitimate access to the Drum Point Beach, and there would have to be a lot of things that would have to be worked out. It just seems like a better way to go than put in $250,000 on a very small beach that eventually might recede anyway as the water comes up.
Okay, good point.
Well, the problem with that is the people that have access to the Drum Point property beach have paid money to have that access.
Right.
So now you're saying about giving access to other people to the beach. And that would be
What I'm saying is work with them and perhaps come up with something. And in the past, there has been discussion about seasonal passes, things like that other members of the community could purchase that would allow them to access just the beach, not the whole thing.
Yeah.
I just think over
Yeah,
time, that might be even to be explored.
Yeah, and that's a good suggestion. We have been at some communication with Mary Ann and the club. In fact, when they provided us the initial proposed study on this, we included an option that also looked further into the club beach, so that they have that. I don't think there's been any action on it, but you know, so there's different things that could be done, but the club could initiate conversation within the club and with us about something like that, and you know, see if there's some way to do that.
Right, and even now, Kurt, you can walk up to the high water mark that's on the
Oh, you
beach.
mean below, basically, there's public access to everything below, below the upper.
Yeah,
Right.
right. Yeah, the top right. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna need your help. Can you roll that back to where you saw the shoreline? While he's doing that, my name's Robert. I've been here almost a couple years, but I've been in the area. I'm in construction business.
You want to see the big picture?
Yeah, with the shoreline, with the red, the
Yeah.
yellow, and the white lines. Yeah, here we go. Thank you. My background is very extensive. I work for consulting engineers out of Manhattan in New York City. We work with the Delaware River and Bay Authority. for the Cape May Lewis Ferry. Okay. I lived in Ocean City, Maryland. I lived in Lewis, Delaware. Now, we had these issues of erosion, like magnified quantitatively to, you know, like you wouldn't believe, but this is small potatoes compared to what I've dealt with. Working with the Corps of Engineers, local building codes in Delaware and Maryland on the shoreline. And what you're fighting is nor'easters do amazing damage to the shoreline, along with hurricanes. So this is going to go on forever. So all these little, not little, but the items you are discussing is foolhardy. And that's shocking for a lot of you to hear. But I've been around a while, and you can't fool Mother Nature. This is going to be happening. So let's take advantage or think about what we have. We have sand leaching from north. Where are we? Here? The beach? Excuse me, right here. All right. Sand will continue to leach from north to south and build up this area. Drum Point, eventually, maybe not in our lifetime, might be 100 yards farther out. As I say, I lived in near Montauk, Long Island. I lived in the Hamptons. I built McMansions, whatever you want to call them, for 25 years. I've been all up and down the Mid-Atlantic in construction, where we've had erosion, beach erosion. So you can spend hundreds of millions of dollars offshore dredging, pumping the sand back up on the beach. Yeah, that's nice for a while, but eventually, you've probably seen in the news or whatever where lighthouses have been abandoned. In some cases, they've been moved. They've been there maybe 200 years, the most, and they're not effective anymore because why? Mother Nature continues. My suggestion, and I believe the lady that was suggesting, I didn't get your name, and I'm sorry, but excuse me. Okay. I have a hearing impairment, and sadly, I read lips. So, guess what? So, here's something to think about. Here we are here with a lovely beach, right out here, right? Yeah. So, and here we have a problem. And it's going to continue to be a problem. And whatever the Corps of Engineers or consulting engineers are saying, you're going to have this beach is going to, eventually you're going to have a little inlet here. This is going to be breached. It could happen next year. It could happen 10 years from now. But it's a fact of life. I've seen it in Long Island. I don't want to get in. Millions of dollars, legal fees, people trying to get the Corps of Engineers to give money to save houses, you know. So if you go to Annapolis, you see this up on the Severn River, you see those houses across from the Naval Academy perched up on
a cliff.
Yeah, so.
Well,
And
we had the same thing up here in Grand State.
yeah, you see it right up there, South River, even going to Edgewater. And I notice these things because I've worked in this business for over 40 years. I'm 77, so that gives you an idea.
Gotcha, gotcha.
77. So I have background. I've been a builder. I've worked, you know, with developers. But what happens here is, I would say, abandon the beach you have now. Just give it up. All these proposals and everything. Work with Mother Nature. Relocate to somewhere along here. Or maybe even work a deal like you're suggesting with the club here. Increase the dues or make it optional. And that's something I don't want to get into here, but this is an alternative. You fellas, you can see back there. Here we are here, here's the beach. And here's right out here. I'm trying to get my bearings out here. So if we clear, can you roll it back to where you showed the south exposure from the beach? Okay, hold that. That's good.
Okay.
That's a good shot right there. All right, here's the beach. And what we don't see is Drum Point right here. about where my hand is that about right? Okay. So this is eventually gonna be breached. If you were young enough and you had some money, you would buy property up in here. You're gonna have waterfront property even more than this pond. You're gonna be shoreline with the bay. The bay is, trust me on this, what is it, 2.5 feet, the sea level's rising? That's gonna happen.
By 2050, you'll get.
2050.
2050. So, you know, buy property inland, it's gonna be waterfront property. All right, so my suggestion is let that go. Just stop, it's like, I don't know, a euphemistic way of saying peeing in the wind, but essentially that's what you're doing. If you abandon everything you're doing here, let this guy here do whatever he wants. You know, he has to go probably through the Corps of Engineers anyhow for waterfront. And he's gonna create leaching back in here, south, where our beach is. Whatever he does is gonna affect here. It's inevitable. So this sand will continue to drift. And a good, any of you go over to the Delmarva Peninsula, when you come back over the Bay Bridge, you look to your right, that's called Sandy Point. Some of you may be familiar. That beach has grown. They did pump some sand up there, but it's magnificent. So now you can do the same thing here. And if you work with the Army Corps of Engineers, whenever they dredge a channel going up to the Thomas Johnson Bridge, I don't know when the last time they did that. Does anyone here recall when they did any dredging there?
That's so deep, you don't have to dredge.
It's 100 feet deep.
That's 100 foot deep.
Do they ever dredge? See, I'm not from here, but anyhow, whenever there's dredging done, they look for some place, where are we gonna put all this stuff, suck it up? You go, hey, we can use it, pump it over here. Guess what? You've enlarged your beach. So to save money or not even spend money is to abandon all these plants here. Maybe create a beach farther south. Clear some of the trees back. We got some volunteers.
That's not our
property.
That's not our property, Robert. Not our property.
In any event,
Okay, but
No,
this,
it's not.
what you're saying are all good suggestions, and they're kind of like what piggybacking on what Judy said. Maybe there's some cooperative effort, because this would require cooperative effort with the club.
where does the community property stop?
Where your finger
About there.
Right, show me.
There's a,
Right where
the
the
drain, the drainage from this lake is right through here, and that's about their property line.
No, drainage is further
south. Way south?
It's a drainage.
Right there at the bottom.
Yeah, the drainage is south.
Oh, this one here. You're right, you're right.
Look at that, we got all this.
No, it's not our property.
No.
That's a club.
That's private property.
The club property ends where?
There.
Way up
Way
there.
up on the tree.
Right where you see
Right
the
where you
trees,
see
Right where our beach ends.
About the tree line there.
Where the tree line is?
About.
Very small.
Maybe my suggestion isn't that valid then, if that's
Maybe not.
the case. So, I was gonna say, just use this for a dirt road to get to the new beach.
Yeah.
If it's gonna wash out,
It's
why
gonna
do
wash
the
out.
road that's gonna
It's
wash
gonna
out?
wash out.
So we're gonna continue to study.
What? Get back to you,
Yeah,
Okay.
Those are all good considerations, and this is all part of the whole long-term solution set that we need to look at. And, you know, I welcome your thoughts and participation, just like Kurt's. I mean, I'm not sold that this is the best way to do it. But we wanted to try to come up with something that looked like a viable option, at least for the midterm, and that would help us preserve our property here.
One really positive thing that after reviewing, the contract, the contractor's report that you shared with me, the really important thing for me was written into his proposal was that his awareness that this was going to affect the property of the South Drum Point Club property. And that a portion of his structures would have to be constructed on Drum Point Club property. And that it required the Drum Point Club as being a co-signature for anything that you were to go ahead on. And to me, that was a very positive thing, because it was one of the few times when there's a realization that the adjacent property owner has input in what the other one is
Right.
committing to sin is doing.
Right. Okay, well, I don't want to belabor this anymore. I mean, it's work in progress. I hope to have some more concrete things for you in June, and we'll consider, I mean, we want to look at the pros and cons of this, so any other inputs are valid. You know, we're not just, we don't want to just, as you said, urinate into the wind. But on the other hand, we want to try to do something that will help preserve the property if we can, if it makes sense. So, okay.
Mark, is this available online, this slide yet?
I can get it to Rhea, and she can, I think you can probably put it on the
I
web.
can do a slideshow on the website, yeah.
Yeah, so we can put it on the website.
Well, just while you have that slide up there, and I'm going to shut up after this one, but in our first, calculation of the amount of material that will be removed as a result of wave diffraction around the end of this offshore breakwater,
Right.
it would influence 300 feet of Drum Point Club shoreline and inland as far as 50.
Right.
So basically, on your drawing, that would start at the club property, I mean, that would start at the association property and end at the inlet, the mouth of the inlet of the lake. That's 300 feet.
And you can kind of see that up there, way at the top. You see that structure that goes out. You see some,
You see the
building behind it. And you see on this side the depletion of sand on that side. So you can't just throw one structure out there without looking at the whole
Yeah, that's
thing.
it.
Okay.
I mean, I got handouts, so, I mean, out there, I'll talk about my stuff that Benny wants to talk about, but I think everybody's had an nauseam.
Okay, well, thank you. That, I mean, it's all useful discussion, and we have to consider all sides of this. All right. New business, presentation of candidates. Do you have anybody from nominating? No.
Yeah, I'm filling in for Peter Bolt. We have 6 candidates to be nominated for the board. I guess there's 6 positions open. The first candidate is Maggie Johnson. Who was
Raise your hand, Maggie.
Second candidate is Mike Snap, who is our current president. I feel like I'm on the Academy Award. Third candidate is Jenny White, Rice, I'm sorry. Jenny Rice, yes, sorry. And also Tony Spakakis.
You still can't pronounce it?
I've been practicing. It's like, it's like when Scherzer came to the Nationals, it took forever to finally pronounce his name.
Wax and lips,
I know, yeah. Jack Andre, who's from there, and Alyssa Holiday, who is not here, I don't believe. So those are your 6 candidates.